Good afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. This is Newsfeed at noon on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. We begin in Philadelphia for the pivotal showdown between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. The debate began with niceties, with Harris shaking the hand of her rival, but she spent the next 90 minutes delivering blistering attacks from his criminal convictions down to his disastrous handling of the pandemic. As for Trump, he went after Harris and the Biden administration for failing to bring down inflation.
Being forced to carry a... Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history.
Another flashpoint, abortion. Harris spoke passionately about Trump's abortion ban, putting him on the defensive and keeping him there.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
The debate, the first and possibly the last between the two, offered the most detailed look yet at the Harris and Trump campaign. It also revealed broadly different visions for the future of the United States. Miss Americana is finally making her choice known, putting an end to speculations. Global pop superstar Taylor Swift endorses U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris for the White House. Taylor made a lengthy post on Instagram, calling Harris a warrior and a gifted leader. She also commended Harris's running mate Tim Walz for standing up for women's rights. And look at what Donald Trump made her do. The pop superstar called out Trump for reposting an AI-generated version of her, supposedly endorsing him. Taylor also signed her post to her over 283 million Instagram followers, Childless Cat Lady, in reference to the infamous comments made by Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance. Outside the National Constitution Center, several arrests were made as protesters marched on the streets of Philadelphia, from demanding an end to the war in Gaza to calls for the protection of America's democracy. The demonstrators came out in full force, some of them even saying neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump is fit for the White House.
I'm definitely not going to be voting for Trump or Harris. They're both war criminals. And Kamala wants to act like she's one of the people, and she is not. She is part of the same administration sending bombs to Gaza.
In other news, a former international news editor in China warns Beijing's illegal offshore gaming operations in Manila may be a long-game strategy to gain control over the Philippine economy. Former Global Times news editor David Nye tells BNC's Agenda China wants to turn the Philippines into one of their lackey countries. Nye says the East Asian giant possibly sees Philippine laws as very lax and takes advantage of this. In July, President Bongbong Marcos ordered the closure of all POGOs in the country.
China is out to try to change the so-called rules-based international order led by the United States. That is what we are enjoying right now under liberal democracy. As far as the likes of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are concerned, they want to change the world system to their own.
Plans are underway for a summit of at least 20 nations to tackle the maritime row between the Philippines and China. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, says the summit aims to seek ways to talk some sense into China over its aggressive behavior in disputed waters. He did not elaborate further, but says the talks would take place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York this month. Manila and Beijing have been trading accusations of deliberately ramming their Coast Guard vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The case of Alice Guo and illegal offshore gaming operations dominate the Senate's hearing on the Transportation Department's proposed budget for 2025. Agatha Gregorio gives us details.
Dismissed Bamban Mayor Alice Guo's escape from the Philippines remained a hot topic even at the budget briefing of the Transportation Department at the Senate. The Philippine Coast Guard announced they will now include non-common carriers in pre-departure inspections. That's after Senator Coco Pimentel asked PCG Commandant Ronnie Hill Gavan if they really should have been able to intercept the yacht that Alice Guo allegedly boarded to leave the country.
Vessels which are non-common carrier are not included in the PDI. And that is the reason why we are now revising the circular.
According to the Institute for Maritime and Ocean Affairs, a common carrier is a person or corporation that transports passengers or goods for compensation. That being said, the yacht used by Guo is a non-common carrier. Gavan adds they are looking at implementing the revision by October. The PCG official says there is legal basis for this move, and so there would be no need for a new law.
Therefore, you could have done that even before.
It is
Why do we need an Alice Go incident before we can anticipate such a scenario and then cover it?
the regulation was made in 2009, and I'm taking my role now to revise it, Your Honor.
Senator Raffy Tulfo also grilled the PCG for supposedly failing to inspect dredging vessels that could be used by those working in Philippine offshore gaming operations to enter or flee the country. Tulfo adds this could compromise national security.
Yan sa may bandang Sofitel, every night may bumababa mga Chinese nationals, walang humaharang. And then aalis, wala man na nag-account kung tama ba yung bilang ng mga dumating versus yung papaalis na. Wala kang ginagawang checking. Bantayan nyo dapat yan. Di ba nakikita, hindi lang dito, sa Zambales, marami mga dredging vessels, labas-masok ng bansa natin, unchecked. Walang ginagawang accounting, di ba?
The PCG says the Immigration Bureau is in charge of issuing sure passes so foreign nationals and vessels may enter the Philippines. But Tulfo asked how the Coast Guard makes certain that everyone with a sure pass return to their vessels. For him, it's possible that Alice Guo could have used one of these boats. Tulfo recommends the use of canines to ensure that there is no one hiding in Chinese dredging vessels.
From the Coast Guard side, we will be reaching out to our partners in the CAQS, and we will be pursuing memorandum of agreement with them so we can develop a system to harmonize our efforts.
The PCG is a civilian agency under the Transportation Department. The DOTr is asking for nearly 190 billion pesos for 2025. Agatha Gregorio, BNC.
With the proposed funding for her office under scrutiny, Vice President Sara Duterte is on the offensive. She's accusing House leaders of manipulating the national budget.
Kaya yan yung sinasabi ko, bakit pa tayo mag-question and answer dito para atakihin niyo ako? Ang masusunod lang naman sa budget, 2 tao lang. Diba? Ang susunod nun na halimbawa ko ay yung budget ng Office of the Vice President. Kung makikita nyo, September 2023, merong lumabas na press release ang Makabayan Block. Sabi nila, may meeting kami with Congressman Martin Romualdez. Pinag-uusapan namin ang pagtanggal ng confidential funds. September yon. Pagkatapos nun, nagkwento sa akin ng isang congressman. Sabi niya, lumapit daw sa kanya si Congressman Ko at sinabihan siya. na tatanggalin namin ang confidential funds ni Inday Sara. Hindi ba siya magagalit? Ang sagot naman sa kanya nung kaibigan ko na congressman, alam mo, si Inday Sara, walang pakialam sa pera yan. Magtatrabaho yan, kahit anong budget. Alam niya yan. Dahil alam din niya, limitado ang pera ng gobyerno. Kaya magtatrabaho yan. Trabaho lang ang gusto niyan. Sinabihan siya. Inulit pa niya yung tanong. Tinanong niya yung congressman, sigurado ka ba na hindi magagalit si Inday Sara? Sabi niya, hindi. Kaya kung makita ninyo, doon sa budget hearing ng Office of the Vice President, ay dinefend namin ng maayos kung paano gagamitin ang confidential funds. Napapabilis ang trabaho, napapadali ang trabaho, dahil nakatarget yung mga proyekto. Pero pagkatapos nung plenary namin sa House, ay kaagad na lumabas, di ba? Walang 2 oras lumabas ang statement ni Congressman Zaldico. Ano sabi niya? Unanimous decision ng party leaders under the leadership of Congressman Martin Romualdez, tatanggalin namin ang confidential funds. At para hindi halata na inaatake nila ako, ay tinanggalan din nila yung mga iba pang mga departments ng kanilang confidential funds. So nakikita nyo, bumulong ang Makabayan Block kay Martin Romualdez. At dahil sa kagustuhan ni Martin Romualdez na hindi siya atakihin, at dahil sa gusto niyang suportahan ang Makabayan at ang NPA, nakinig siya. At ang ginawa niya, tanggalin yung budget. Alam
Our reporter Hannah T. is on the scene at the Batasang Pambansa for House Appropriations Committee Chairman Elizalde Co's response to the Vice President's allegations. Hannah, go ahead.
My Representative Elizalde Co did not hold back in criticizing Vice President Sara Duterte, accusing her of scamming the public or nambubutol. This comes after Duterte's claims of budget manipulation by some lawmakers in Congress, saying removal of confidential funds from the OVP and other agencies had been decided upon by some lawmakers. Yesterday, Duterte also claimed Co is one of the lawmakers who handle the national budget. Co says funds for financial aid should be directed towards agencies like the DSWD to avoid any political movement. He also mentioned that the House Executive Committee will soon meet to determine if they will pursue a budget cut for the office of the Vice President in 2025. Lawmakers also reacted to VP Sara's accusations in an ongoing press briefing. Representative Jude Asidre added that Vice President Duterte needs to address the issue of the Department of Education's confidential funds during her time as secretary. For Asidre, budget items must undergo scrutiny for how they've been spent over a 2-year period. My Co also mentioned that Vice President Sara Duterte's refusal to answer questions on the confidential funds is because she can't explain it since she stole the money, and Co called for Duterte to return the funds, which further intensifies the budget controversy. As for the potential budget cut for the OVP, Co hinted that it could be more than 50 million, though the final amount will depend on the Executive Committee's discussions. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you, Hannah T. Live from the Batasang Pambansa. Squid tactics, that's how House Majority Leader Manix Dalipe describes Vice President Duterte's claim. House Speaker Martin Romualdez and House Appropriations Panel Chair Elizalde Co are controlling budget allocations. On BNC's At the Forefront, Dalipe insisted budget decisions involve the entire chamber and not just 2 individuals. He added Romualdez is not bothered by the accusation because there is no truth to it.
So instead of coming up with answers that the House members need to come up with a committee report with regards to the proposed budget of the Office of the Vice President for 2025, she's trying to to hurl accusations, come up with insinuations. I think everyone in the House of Representatives is committed to finishing our constitutional mandate, to finishing our constitution of scrutinizing the budget for 2025 and eventually pass it on third reading.
Coming up, a billionaire and his crew blast into space on board a SpaceX capsule for a Milestone mission. Details of that and more when Newsfeed returns. Keep it here on BNC. We're back. You're watching Newsfeed. Australia planning to ban children from using social media, citing risks to physical and mental health. The Australian Prime Minister said they would run an age verification trial before introducing the new law later this year. He didn't specify the minimum age for social media use, but said it would likely be between 14 and 16. This would make Australia one of the first countries in the world to impose an age restriction on social media.
I want to see kids off their devices and onto the footy fields and the swimming pools and the tennis courts. We want them to have real experiences with real people because we know that social media is causing social harm.
It's back to basics for a town in Finland as students return to school with bags full of books instead of gadgets. Finland's public education system has gained global recognition for its preparedness to try new techniques, including handing out laptops to students as young as 11. But there's also growing concern from parents over the impact of too much screen time on children. Surprisingly, the reduced screen time is being received well, even by the students.
I find I can concentrate much better, and doing homework it's easier because I don't have to I don't need a device for it. And writing it can be a bit tiring, but I learn easier.
I do think that it has sort of made young people concentrate more during lessons, and there are less distractions with the books, and I do think it is much better.
Excitement builds in Singapore ahead of Pope Francis's visit. The city-state is the last leg of the Pope's 12-day Asia-Pacific tour, which included stops in Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Indonesia. 50,000 people are expected at the National Stadium, where the 87-year-old pontiff will celebrate Mass. For many Catholics in Singapore, this will be their first time to see a pope. The last papal visit there was in 1986 when Pope John Paul II stopped by for 5 hours.
It gives us so much motivation, inspiration, especially he's really elderly and yet he remembers us, and I feel he's a great shepherd. And because of him, I just feel our Lord Jesus is with us.
Oh, I feel that, he represents all of us. He is our shepherd. Yes? And so, being able to know that he's coming, which is only once in a lifetime.
I think a few years back in the Philippines, he visited, but I'm here in Singapore, so I don't have chance to see him face to face. But now I'm so excited to see him this coming Wednesday. I'm one of the chosen one to welcome him in the Changi Airport. So I'm very excited. I want to experience Jesus on a personal level when I see the Pope. So that's my prayer and my expectation.
4 private astronauts blast into space to kick off SpaceX Milestone mission. A billionaire entrepreneur, a retired military fighter pilot, and 2 SpaceX employees are taking part in the 5-day Polaris Dawn mission, which aims to test new spacesuit designs and conduct the first private spacewalk. The crew lifted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida early Tuesday and reached orbit in about 9.5 minutes.
We can see the crew enjoying their first taste of microgravity there on the left-hand side of your screen. Now that the MVAC engine has shut down, they are able to just kind of float free. We might catch a glimpse of the zero-G indicator. Can't quite tell if they've. Oh, it looks like it's in the upper right-hand corner. It'll come back into view here. Looks like our first clear view of planet Earth there, our first of many for this mission. I believe this view here is, yep, it's of the trunk. We can see it separating from the second stage. A gorgeous view. We can see that Polaris Dawn.
That is amazing. Suspended Energy Regulatory Commission Chief Mona Lisa de Malanta plans to file a motion for reconsideration once she receives a copy of the complaint filed against her by a consumer group. Speaking to BNC's Agenda, de Malanta said so far she only has a copy of the Office of the Ombudsman suspension order. The Ombudsman suspended de Malanta for 6 months without pay. The complaint accuses de Malanta of allowing Meralco to purchase electricity from the wholesale electricity spot market at higher prices.
Ngayon po nangangapa pa rin po ako kung ano po ba talaga yung reklamo. Pinag-aaralan po ng mga abogado ko kung paano po namin sasagutin kasi po gusto sanang mag-file namin agad ng motion for reconsideration on this preventive suspension order so that we can also fully explain.
The Bureau of Internal Revenue partners with several business groups to help the agency streamline tax services and boost collection. Sujin Kim tells us more about this initiative.
Revenue Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. is confident tax compliance will have a substantial uptick in the coming months. This as 12 private companies express their support and cooperation with the BIR in simplifying compliance procedures and reducing administrative burdens in the tax system. Lumagi says this partnership will ensure the business community is adequately represented in matters of tax policy.
It symbolizes our collective commitment to improving the tax system in our country. We reaffirm our shared mission, and that is to create a tax environment that is fair, transparent, and conducive to economic growth.
The Memorandum of Agreement signed Tuesday formalizes their collaboration as well as the receipt of new partners, including the Makati Business Club, Alliance of Tech Innovators for the Nation, and the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry. With this, Lumagi says the government will be more aligned with the private sector through regular dialogues with key stakeholders.
Tayo ay magkakaroon ng pagkakataon na regular ang napagpupulong at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga tax policies. Malaking bagay din ang ideas ng mga partnership at ng mga private sectors because ultimately you are the people, you are our stakeholders, and you are the taxpayers that we really serve.
The Bureau of Internal Revenue is set to achieve its full-year collection target of 3.04 trillion pesos.
Compared sa previous year, alam ko ang growth rate natin ay maganda, kaya naman na marami rin na nagre-recognize na maganda ang nagiging takbo at performance ng BIR dahil mataas ang growth rate ng collection natin.
He adds, following the implementation of the withholding tax guidelines for online sellers, more and more businesses have begun registering with the BIR. Sujin Kim, BNC.
Social media users are flooding Balada's Facebook page with bad reviews. The famous Tagaytay restaurant drew flack for allegedly discriminating against Aspins or Asong Pinoy. thousands of negative comments dragged Balaydaco's recommendation rate on Facebook to 28%, with users slamming it for being a fake pet-friendly establishment. Balaydaco faced backlash after a customer claimed the restaurant refused to accommodate her and her Aspen by providing vague details about their pet policy. Balaydaco has since issued an apology for the incident. Before we go, here's some great news for gamers. Sony is launching an upgraded version of its next-gen console. The PlayStation 5 Pro will be out on November 7, and it has better graphics and AI capabilities. Hardware improvements will also allow games to run much faster. Simply put, Sony says it's the most powerful console it has ever built. The PlayStation 5 Pro will retail for about $700 US. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on BNC, Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.